tough issue. Look, let me make 2 points that will be very controversial, and you may disagree with them completely. Jeffrey Epstein was not a pedophile. That term has a specific meaning. It means people who are sexually attracted to prepubescent girls or boys. That is 11, 12 years old. That's the definition of all psychiatrists and of the law. Epstein was interested in 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. He was a bad person, did terrible, terrible things. The word pedophile is not a correct description of what he was. Number two, he was not a trafficker. Traffickers make money by selling and enslaving girls. What he did is he was a selfish guy who was having sex with all these, sexual contact at least, with all these 16, 17-year-olds, and maybe lending them to people like Prince Andrew. We don't know for sure. But he was not a trafficker in the true sense of the word. That's why there's no client list. There were no clients. And the other
because there was no money being exchanged.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah. And the other point, he didn't work for the Mossad. I know that because I debriefed him when I was trying to make a deal for him back in 2006, 7, and he would have told me if he had a deal, if he was working for the government, because it would have helped him get a clear, better deal.
Everybody knows, but I don't say nothing. It was a sense of burnout, but now I wanna turn it again.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, wherever you are. This is the #1 late night show, World at War, and I am Dean Ryan, your late night host here, who is definitely late to the scene. And I apologize. We had a guest for all of you here tonight who literally canceled last minute, which put a monkey wrench into our little party here tonight. So we had to rearrange, at least I did. I had to rearrange everything, so I do apologize. But I'm back in the throne. I'm back in the captain's seat here tonight. And I am on the road, as you can plainly see. If you're that good, you can plainly see here tonight. But tonight is Control, Blackmail, and War. That is the episode we're going to be getting into because we are 10 minutes past midnight. And we have a lot to get to and a very extremely short time to get there. We are broadcasting live on The Real Dean Ryan over there on Facebook. I hope to God you can see me, as well as Dean Ryan TV over there on the very ever so loving YouTube, Dean Ryan TV, and of course, Rumble. So let's just get right into it with some real deal headlines from around the world and in your neck of the woods. Well, here it is. Some headlines that you need to know about. This is happening right now in California. That's right. California is now experiencing, well, what a surprise. California wildfire explodes to over 65,000 acres, shuts down highway. You don't say. Tell me more, please. And tell me right now, because as a wildfire that just started days ago on Friday exploded over the weekend, over there in Central California, burning a whopping 65,000 acres, according to the Cal Fire company over there. The incoming warm weather, the global warming, according to the man bear pig Al Gore, he's saying, and they're saying that it's possibly making it even harder to fight the blaze, which is the favorite slogan of an arsonist out there. Well, the smoke from the growing fire has started to impact the air quality in this other region of the state. Now, just today now, we can now report that the smoke was affecting air quality everywhere. Yes, they're saying that there's a potential for building heat later this week. This could get out of control. We never saw this coming. Now, currently, there's 1,000, a little over 1,000 firefighters are now battling the blaze, dubbed the Gifford Fire, which spans from both Santa Barbara to all the way to San Luis Obispo counties, and it is currently 3% contained. Well, it's like we've been here before, deja vu, just 3 years in the running, isn't it? Continuing now. Well, get this, if you're on the East Coast, well, don't feel left out. We have something for you too. Yes, in the theme of Armageddon and the final days, well, now we have the National Hurricane Center, who is now watching what they're calling multiple hotspots in near the Atlantic Ocean, I should say, as this is a real blunder for anyone who is trying to get on a last-minute cruise. Well, you may want to think twice and see if it's even nice enough to go, as the National Hurricane Center is monitoring now multiple areas, including Tropical Storm Dexter. Now, Dexter, the new to the family of all the storms and death-defying storms at that, has formed on Sunday and is expected to stay in the Atlantic as the tropical storm is building. But many people are saying it will then weaken into what they're hoping is a post-tropical cyclone on Wednesday, with little death to no death at all, or elements of that feature. Well, now the tropical wave, as the formation has a chance to get to a very low storm in the next 48 hours. We will be monitoring the disturbance as the hurricane season could grow, as it is definitely upon us. Continuing now. Well, now that brings us to this one. You have to see it to believe it now. The Trump administration is now links 1.9 billion, that's right, with a B, billion disaster preparedness funds. You want it? Well, you got to behave, and you have to bow at the altar of somebody in some things. Well, let me tell you a bit more about this. Truly, truly remarkable now, as the Trump administration's disaster funds to Israel boycott stands, meaning if you don't like it, well, you're not going to get the money. That's right. The Trump administration is linking $1.9 billion in federal disaster preparedness funds to states and cities rejecting boycotts of Israeli companies. The policy announced by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, which we heard was supposed to be nothing but a thing of the past. Well, now it requires recipients to certify that they will never sever commercial relations with Israeli firms. Now, the fund supports essential services such as search and rescue equipment and emergency management. Is there a treason anywhere here, or is that just me and I have a bigger problem than I realize? I don't know, but people like the not so great one. Yeah, this jabroni right here, he's saying that we have to bow down at the altar of Israel if we want to get paid, as IDF soldiers, believe it or not, are worth 10 soldiers for every one IDF soldier. And these are the people we're not allowed to boycott. Isn't that right, Mark Levin, the not so great one?
No other country in the world has fed the citizens of an enemy that is still in an active war. None. Israel is fighting Hamas. You know how many IDF soldiers it's lost? No, you don't. Why? Because the American media doesn't give a damn. The Western media doesn't give a damn. Who are these IDF soldiers? They're young men and women. They're the citizens of Israel. They come out of the restaurants and cafes. They're plumbers, they're electricians, they're truck drivers, they're doctors and nurses. They're regular people. How many of them have died? Nobody wants to know. Almost 1,000. Well, Mark, 1,000? It's a nation of 9 million people. That would be like tens of thousands of our soldiers dying, on top of tens and tens of thousands of Israelis who were slaughtered by Hamas. Israel is surrounded.
Hamas, yeah, and that's our problem now, right, Mark Levin? Why don't you go back to that creepy country, you derelict, mutant-looking creature, which now brings us to another feature that we have to be on the look for, as now the currency change is amongst us and it is upon us. Well, that brings us to the stable coins. Here comes the stable coins, and we have to know exactly what that is. Now, in a recent feature on Natural News, well, if you didn't see it, you're missing out now, as this is being coined, no pun intended, as Trump's Trojan horse. How stable coins are secretly paving the way for the CBDC control grid. That's the Federal Reserve. Now, recently in an interview over there with Catherine Austin Fitts, the financial coup d'etat, as she's describing it, it's accelerating under the Trump administration, isn't just another power grab, she's saying. While the public is now being manipulated by congressional charades and media distractions, stablecoins marketed as the vehicles of decentralized finance are quietly evolving in the backdoor centralized digital currency, the CBDC system. Now, this is not a fringe conspiracy theory, so let's put that aside, if you don't mind. It's confirmed the strategy from the architects in the global reset, so just hush, hush, shall we? Well, the stable coin is also known as the digital palette of cash for financial enslavement, to those who know a thing or two. Well, what is it going to do? It's going to replace local currencies. That's right. It's tethered to the US dollar and engineered to destabilize national currencies, to be exact. Now, take El Salvador's ill-fated Bitcoin experiment. It wasn't true decentralization, but a backdoor for dollar dominance to maintain the US Treasury's ability to sell debt into large demands to curve the dollars. Now, it's also going to inflate the Treasury market. We're talking upwards of 21 trillion with a T, as in Thomas, is going to be doing that. That is something that's not in our best interest as U.S. Treasuries, while the Fed prints more and more money for wasteful spending for Israel's benefit. And finally, what else is this going to do? Well, it's going to enforce, yes, the social credit score, something that we thought only existed in China. Well, guess again, yes. It's not only chopsticks you're going to be learning how to use going in the future. It's now the social credit score and self-censorship, and have you behaved, and are you drunk and intoxicated in public? Because that's going to affect your social credit score. Now, how you can opt out before the digital concentration camp is sealed? Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking now. Well, number one, they're saying ditch the TV. Americans want the story of I'm good, and they're checking all these different things from Fox News, CNN. Well, ditch the smart TV if you don't need it. Number two, protect your health. Stockpile natural colloidal silvers and medicines, because this is God's greatest pharmacy to us all. It's called Little Pharma, if you haven't figured it out. And finally, move to a jurisdiction where freedom lives and honors something that's very rare, called the United States Constitution. Those are just a little tidbits and some little fun facts that can help you and yours in a stable coin kind of world. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now let's get to some real deal politics. But before we do, we have to, I want to mention that we did have an interviewer, a guest, I'm the interviewer, who was supposed to be here, as they said they're going to probably come back, I want to say Wednesday for that fact. So I'll let you know more about that. She would have came in this segment here, but let's get to some real deal politics, just the way you were. Well, we have some breaking news right off the bat, and let's get to it because this is now coming out of Fox News and has everything to do with, I can't report, and I hope to God we have it, but there seems to be now major movement. I'll just tell you about it, as the roads to Obama, they're getting close to charging John Brennan, Clapper, and Barack Obama with treason. And the irony of this is blinding. According to the first segment, we all support that, but there's a race now to see who's going to be charged with treason first, because I can't take it anymore, everybody. This is so far out. Okay, so, and what is that going to entail? Just to, you're going to see Tulsi Gabbard, who's going to be telling us that it's going to be a Barack Obama, and but the question remains, is this to throw off everything that's happening with Israel in the just unholy alliance? Well, one must ask themselves. But anyway, let's continue here, and I'll try to forget that just happened. Now, as we continue into the mystifying MGT, that's right, Marjorie Greene Taylor is now back in the news, as Bondi and the federal prosecutors are now totally focused on the past and Russian collusion. Well, Marjorie Greene Taylor is now part of a potential dramatic breakup with Trump over a core base frustration that could really upend the entire Republican Party. That's right. The 51-year-old lawmaker wants to stop foreign aid and continue to use Doge to shave down the government expenditures and waste, stop adding to the national debt, and be on the lookout for inflation. She's begging the question of what happened to all those issues. She goes, that I don't want the hell happened. I don't know what the hell happened with the Republican Party. I really don't. But I'll tell you one thing for sure. The course that it's on, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I just don't care anymore. Now, Greene has recently put forward a slew of legislation that focuses on areas not typically touched by the GOP, the Grand Ole Opry. In recent months, she introduced bills that prevent cloud seeding and release chemicals in the sky, aka chemtrails. Well, she's one of them, if you know what I mean. Well, make the English the official language of the U.S., to cut capital gains, taxes on home, all the things a lot of people were agreeing with. Now, Greene told the Daily Mail over there that she doesn't find herself with close GOP allies much anymore, particularly women that are championing causes that she's most interested in. She said, quote, "I'm going alone right now on the issues, and I feel so alone. And P.S. I think I'm alone now." Well, this is what she's saying.
I don't think we should be fighting wars on behalf of Israel. And many Americans agree with that. I'm one of those Americans that are really sick and tired of the narrative that we're constantly told that we're supposed to hate some country that's overseas, that maybe we've never been to. We don't know anything about that country, but we're told that they're the greatest threat to our freedoms and our democracy, and that we have to go to war with them. I've never seen a Houthi or a Houthi, or however you pronounce it. I don't even know what they look like. I haven't seen them back home in Rome, Georgia, where I live. I haven't seen them in Washington, D.C. And I keep saying that, how is this a threat to everyday Americans when they are not threatening us here at home in our homeland?
Thank you. Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you for that. Very nice. Very nice. As well, we continue into Marjorie's arch rival, the not so innocent AOC, who totally settled for a very lackluster, husband, if you ask me. Well, get this now. Something that we knew about a long time ago. Well, now it's coming back to haunt certain people again, is now AOC is now busted for bending rules with fiance. Well, that can mean a lot of bending things, if you know what I mean. And I've done the studies. Well, let me tell you more about this now, as AOC is now busted for that, just bending the rules. Bending it like Beckham, maybe. Well, the House Committee of Ethics that many people forgot existed, even the people in it, well, now has rebuked the Progressive Squad rep, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, yes, AOC, and for claiming in government filings that her fiance both is and not her spouse. See, I knew she was on the fence. I mean, he's just not, he's so inadequate, if you ask me. Well, Ocasio, AOC, who's 35 years young, is now supposedly a Democrat over there in New York, was criticized by the Ethics Committee all the way back in July of, this year. Remember that old month? For listing her fiance, Mr. Riley Roberts, as her spouse. He's kind of a wily, rascally rabbit as well. On federal documents, she also attended in the 2021 Met Gala, despite the two not being legally married. Well, the committee has also found evidence that AOC and Monsieur Roberts as her spouse on paperwork filed with the House relating to privately sponsored travel. So she's in big trouble because, excuse me, I'll take this here. Yeah, because this is why she was voting with Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi had all the blackmail. Now it's coming back to ruse again under whoever the Republican, postures and leads are. So it probably will amount to nothing per usual. And that now will bring us to this, someone who's totally misunderstood and really never got a fair chance. Well, yes, Christine Nome says the alligator Alcatraz to be the model for ICE state-run detention centers. Ouch. Yes, that is one hell of a crock. Well, in this case, Christine Nome, who is definitely getting a lot of criticism lately, and so is the other people who are affiliated with the Homeland Security Secretary. Well, now she's saying this alligator Alcatraz will serve as a model state run for migration detention centers and potentially places that we might see all of us going in the near future if we have not figured it out by now. She told CBS News recently in an interview that she hopes to launch a handful of similar detention centers in multiple airports, jails across the country in the incoming months. Potential sites are already under consideration: Arizona, Nebraska, and Louisiana, and may even feature, instead of Alcatraz for alligators, it may even feature, well, quite famished and hungry hippos themselves. So we'll see how that one goes. Moving on now. Well, now that brings us to a very unusual bedfellow for nobody. That's, yes, Laura Loomer, who is now looming again. And you've ever asked yourself, why is this young woman always in the news? Why are they always propping her up? Do we know? She gets a lot of play, came out of nowhere. So continuing now, well, let's talk about Laura Loomer, who's always looming her way into the dramatics of life. Well, this is called the MAGA infighting continues. Loomer blasts now Tucker Carlson as a, quote, fraud and a terrible person in its latest rant. And that irony, too, is quite gut-wrenching. While the two popular right-wing figureheads have been increasingly critical of each other recently as their positions on Trump's foreign policy continue to pull in opposite directions, meaning she's pulling in the direction of Israel, and Tucker Carlson is saying, wait, I'm American and not the creepy country person. Well, these so-called far-right activists, which, how do you measure far-right? And whatever happened to alt-right? Those people are lonely. Well, the far-right activists, as they're calling it over there, has launched a blistering public attack on Tucker Carlson, accusing the former Fox News host of being, quote, terrible person and a fraud, and having stupid hair to add. Well, this comes as MAGA's infighting continues to stemming largely from the Epstein files. Loomer's comments came in a direct response to an article recently in which Carlson was quoted in likening her to a child wielding a loaded firearm called Twitter, and blaming, quote, the adults who take her seriously for enabling her influence. Yes. He also continued by saying, I'm so glad many people are starting to see what a terrible person Tucker Carlson is. That's Laura Loomer who said that little wench. I'm glad people's eyes are opening to what a fraud this guy is. No, I haven't opened my eyes, you wench, to what a fraud Tucker is. And notice she doesn't say what the fraud is. What's the fraudulence? Because we saw you eating dog food just weeks ago, and I'm deadly serious. Well, the animosity between the two has been building for months, as many others in the so-called movement, is now fueled in part by disagreements over foreign policy of Donald Trump's position on his beloved almost home called Israel and his not-so-beloved home called Iran. Loomer, who's positioned herself as a staunch defender of Trump's pro-Israel stance and everything that Israel has done, will do, and has done in the past, while Carlson has become increasingly critical of U.S. support for Israeli military action in Gaza in recent months, and how dare he? He just got himself a label of fraud because of that. I hope he's happy. And that is some real deal politics, just the way you like it. Okay, now that's going to bring us to, this is really now a doomsday kind of predicament. I don't know if you caught what I was sharing just last week as a potential strike on Russia. According to many experts, Mike Adams and I have talked about this. He said within 10 days in his remote viewing technology that he has over there in his incredible natural news laboratories, he saw what he saw in Iran. Last time we were in this position, he saw it happening in Moscow. an imminent attack by the United States on Russia. Could it happen? We hope it does not happen, but that's going to bring us to World War III. War III. Yes, let's talk about it now, as there's a lot of things in the running here, but more importantly, there's now U.S. targeting on a new region, on a new enemy. Let's talk about it now, as this brings us to our feature stories here tonight, as control, blackmail, and war is upon us. Yes, it is. Yes, it is now, as U.S. is now targeting Iranian elites' global shipping empire in sweeping sanctions crackdown. See, and remember, sanctions are always the buildup to a greater kinetic war. Well, the United States has now imposed its toughest sanctions since 2018, targeting an Iranian shipping network tied to top leader's son, involving 15 firms, 52 vessels, and entities across 17 countries. Officials also exposed a vast oil smuggling operation allegedly ran by Mohammed Hussein in Shimkhani. Shimkhani, yes. Yeah. Once you learn that word and that name, you just feel like you accomplished something. As now they're using shell companies to fund Iran's regime and evade sanctions because, we're the hall monitors now. Now, Iran condemned the sanctions as an attack on its sovereignty. They better be careful. They're going to be labeled frauds, just like Tucker, too, if they keep it up now. Well, Iran's condemned the sanctions as an attack on its sovereignty, vowing defiance, while the United States framed them as a necessary evil to curb corruption and terror financing. Yes, it is. The sanctions aim to disrupt Iran's shadow oil trade without destabilizing the global markets, as exports have already dropped now a whopping 600,000 barrels per day this year. And finally, the move highlights the Shimkhani family's global wealth and hypocrisy, they're saying, with the U.S. signaling no elite's offshore empire is beyond its reach. Yes. Wow, it's just so powerful, isn't it? Can't wait till that dollar collapses because of this. It's now weaponized. Continuing now, Trump orders nuclear submarines moved after Russian provocative statements. That's right. Trump says he's responding to Mendev, as Trump and Mendev is traded taunts in recent days. Arms control advocates call remarks irresponsible. Yes, they have. Now, Washington over there, President Trump just last Friday said he has ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in appropriate regions in response to remarks from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev about the risk of war between the nuclear-armed adversaries. It's just so incredible how we were just here under Biden, everybody, and here we are again. Isn't that something? Now, security analysts called Trump's move of rhetorical escalation with Moscow. They called his move, but not necessarily a military one, given that the United States has already nuclear-powered submarines that are deployed and capable of striking Russia, they're saying. But the former president, Medvedev, on Thursday said that Trump should remember that Moscow possessed Soviet-era nuclear strike capabilities of last resort, after Trump told the former president, quote, "Watch his words," because words are very important, they're saying. Now, it's worth noting that the United States Navy and the Pentagon declined to comment about Trump's remarks on whether submarines had been moved to the area. It's extremely rare that the United States military openly discusses any deployment, for that fact, and the location of U.S. submarines, given their sensitive mission in nuclear deterrence. So this comes at a terrible time. I'm telling you, this is not what people like us want to see. No, we don't. No, we don't. And continuing now. So now we have submarines near Russia. Well, what does that mean altogether? Good question. Well, now Russia moves nuke bombers closer to Europe, just days after explosive Trump's World War III row and rhetoric that no one here appreciates. And all those who voted for him certainly did not vote for this. Well, the strategic aircraft now by Russia are often used to bomb Ukraine, and reports suggest that they have been loaded with missiles, leading to, quote, a high probability of imminent major attack. Isn't that something? Vladimir Putin has now moved at least 4 heavy Tu-95MS nuclear bombers closer to Europe, for that fact. That's true. The strategic aircraft are often used to bomb Ukraine are now getting even closer into the heart of the European zones. If confirmed, the move comes after Donald Trump ordered 2 nuclear submarines closer to Russia after a threat of atomic war with the Kremlin dictator's close ally, Dmitry Medvedev. The United States submarines are now where they have to be, Trump said just late Sunday night. Putin rebased his bombers, planes and everything close to the Alenia Air Base in the Arctic Murmansk region after audacious June 1st drone strike by Ukraine, who keeps breaking the ceasefire deals. Does he not know this? Does he have a choice? Who's running the country? Somebody give me answers. Well, now, this is now all fine and dandy, as now the plans are part of Russia's nuclear strike arsenal that they're now telling the United States to beware, and maybe you should watch your words too. Isn't that something? It's also worth noting in closing here that this all comes off additional information that Russia has now released over the weekend, that Trump should be careful and watch not only his words, but watch his steps, for they now possess the true Epstein files. And they said it's one brilliant read, if you ask me. So we are living in a control, blackmailed war type of era. That was supposed to be the so-called golden era. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Okay, we're going to take this quick break and reshuffle the deck here. But when we get back, we have some real deal international news that you don't want to miss, as Canada is really putting a huge step forward in something that they're providing to the Middle East in the form of aid, that is, as the world is seeing famine grow like we've never seen before in our lifetimes. And people like the Netanyahu character is definitely denying that anything is happening. So we're going to be getting to that. Also, Australia is in the news, and something they just did with their Senate. It's very rare Australia makes the headlines anymore, isn't it? And also, sticking with the Canadian islands up north, there's something that I didn't know about, and maybe a lot of Canadians don't know about, as Canada's Yukon province over there in the Yukon area could unleash some major magnitude earthquakes, and we need to learn about it. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back as you're watching the #1 late night show, as I'm back here on the road, as we invade your TV screen here tonight. We'll be back after this quick message.
Goodbye.
Operation Midnight Hammer is underway. Well, after the U.S. bombing run and days of attacks, reported by the Defense Intelligence Agency, estimated that the program had been delayed, but by less than 6 months. That's the uranium, that's the nuclear making. And the report also said that much of Iran's stockpile enriched uranium was moved before the strikes. And they're confirming now some Israeli officials who are highly, highly pissed off said that they also believe that the Iranian government had maintained small covert enrichment facilities What we witnessed is now we can describe as Operation Hammer, but I don't know about you out there. I'm old enough to remember the original Operation Hammer, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, this is the original Operation Midnight Hammer. Yes. So, it just goes to show everything old is new again. And ask Paul Pelosi, and he'll tell you. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to World at War, the #1 late night shadow band show. I'm still Dean Ryan, your cruise director, cruising with you to midnight and beyond. Tonight is brought to you by, you saw it, yes, the Tsunami Summer sale. We have so many new items in there. In the era of tsunamis, I'm getting blown away like a Gulliver's Travel. There's a Jim Kahuna and the whole gang right there. Just go to realdealmedia.tv, realdealmedia.tv, and when you get there, make sure to use promo code Summer25, Summer25, as you can see there. In fact, we don't even need the ticker for that. Yes, indeed. Also, a big thank you to everybody who has contributed to the cause. You know who you are out there to keep these broadcasts going. We are facing incredible times, biblical times to some. All you got to do is go to givesendgo.com/realdealgo, Real Deal Go, and every donation helps fuel the operation. It all goes back into a good cause. So yes, it does. And don't you know, a big thanks to all the new members out there. If you haven't become a Real Deal Media member, you're missing out. All you got to do, yes, it's very easy these days. Go to realdealmedia.tv, become a visionary, debonair, a player from the Himalayas, and iconic, not ironic, become a night owl tonight. Please do so. We thank you for it as we have some gifts underway. Okay, I promised the video just that it just got lost in the just the haze, the fog of everything. Here's just about a minute of this, of the breaking news in the road to Obama, they're saying, as Tulsi Gabbard's leading the way for treason.
Well, Will, good to be with you. This is coming out of the Justice Department. Fox News can confirm that Attorney General Pam Bondi today signed an order directing an unnamed U.S. federal prosecutor to take evidence to a grand jury relating to an alleged conspiracy to tie then 2016 candidate Donald Trump to the country of Russia. Now, Fox News reviewed the one-page order just hours ago signed by the Attorney General. A source familiar with the probe confirms this as well, while a DOJ spokesperson declined to comment on this report of an investigation. Fox is told Attorney General Bondi is taking the referrals from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, quote, very seriously. The spokesperson says that Bondi believes there is, quote, clear cause for deep concern, end quote, and a need for the next steps. Now, this move, Will, comes just a couple of weeks after the Director of...
Yeah, but yeah, it's making national news now. There's no hiding. The walls are closing in, and on the American people too. So don't feel left out. Don't feel left out, which is not going to bring us to some Real Deal International. Let's get on the Concorde and going, shall we? That's right, young grasshopper. We have a lot to tend to here tonight as now the famine is growing, as now Gaza is said to be on the brink of major famine. Urgent action needed as humanitarian crisis deepens. Yes, it's true. Something that said is not true, and a complete fraudulence and fraud, according to Laura, I love dog food and puppy chow Loomer. That's right. Now the IPC over there warns that the famine conditions have emerged in Gaza, with starvation and acute malnutrition at catastrophic levels. Over 150 Palestinians, including children, have died from the starvation since October 2023, and 40,000 infants face imminent risk of death. Unbelievable. Israel's blockade has severely restricted food and humanitarian aid since March, leaving thousands of aid trucks stranded. United Nations agencies emphasize starvation is solely due to the blocked access, not scarcity. And I can attest to this has been going on. Like, I remember this happening 15 years ago when I first started looking into it, and people I knew that were trying to provide flotillas of food. Continuing now, over 100 humanitarian organizations demand an end to the siege, reporting the staff malnutritionment and collapse is, well, it's now underway. Now, Israeli crime minister and war criminal himself, Benjamin Netanyahu, dismisses the famine claims as, quote, lies. Despite U.S. skepticism, Israel's announced aid pauses and airdrops and criticized and inadequate by aid groups like Doctors Without Borders. Now, the IPC over there has now projects that Gaza's entire 2.1 million population will face acute food insecurity by September, with over 500,000 in extreme starvation. Over 40,000% of pregnant breastfeeding women and 20% of young children suffer acute malnutrition, signaling accelerating disaster. That is it's just a picture of our imagination, although the whole world can see it. It's not true. It's like the thumb trick from, just the creepy uncle of Netanyahu. You got to check yourself, check your eyes. You know what I mean? It's a misunderstanding. It's complicated. Well, here's something that's not complicated now. Canada is getting into the fold here as Canada now comes to Gaza's aid. Yes, we now can report that as a true happening. Yes, it is. Mark Carney, the man who is filled with carnage, now early this morning, said the Canadian Armed Forces airdropped life-saving aid into Gaza. The humanitarian disaster in Gaza is now rapidly deteriorating, according to Carney. Canada is now intensifying its efforts with the international partners to develop a credible peace plan that will ensure aid moves forward at the necessary scale. Isn't that something? I guess he must have not get the memo too. There's no famine. He must be crazy. What's wrong with him? Should get his bifocals checked from Netanyahu's optometrist. Continuing now, well, that now brings us to Australia. Get this now. This is unusual news coming from the land down under, as now the Australian Senate rejects age verification for search engine users in surprise bipartisan push, something that we haven't heard about in quite some time. Australia's Senate passed a motion to halt proposed mandatory age verification for search engine users, citing serious privacy concerns. Now, the motion, led by UAP Senator Ralph Babet, no relation to Babar, drew rare bipartisan support from parties across the political spectrum, except for, yes, Labor. Now, Babette warned that the proposed verification methods, such as ID checks, facial recognition, and data tracking, would erode civil liberties under the guise of child safety. The motion follows legislation passed November of 2024, that's last year, banning under 16s from social media, which includes $50 million of fines for non-compliant platforms. Wow. Now, critics argue that both age verification proposal and social media bans set dangerous precedents for surveillance and undermine parental responsibility, where the heads of Australia just scoffed at that and said, we're the parents and we're also the perpetrators too, in case you didn't know. That's the case. Well, continuing now, well, that brings us now back to Canada, as we have a very bipolar Concord travel here tonight. Well, that brings us to something called the Yukon Providence, the Yukon Mountains, or the Yukon Giant Fault. Well, it's known as a sleeping giant fault in Canada's Yukon. Regions over there could unleash devastating magnitude of 7.5 earthquake, study warns, something that now New York and New Jersey, everybody's having earthquakes over there. Everybody's doing the earthquake rumble. Well, the Tina Fault over there in Canada's Yukon doormat has now been dormant for 12,000 years, they're saying, may soon unleash magnitudes of 7.5 earthquakes due to an accumulated strain. Now, new research reveals that the fault has moved significantly over millions of years now, suggesting it remains active despite minimal recent activity. Satellite and other features uncovered the prehistoric quake evidence, indicating that the fault could rupture after accumulating what they're calling a 20-foot strain, but now within the danger zone and just in time to meet the fake revelations they're trying to place all upon us. Any word from the Red Heifer, anyone? Well, major quake could devastate sparse communities like Dawson City over there in Canada, not to mention potentially even Dawson's Creek, too, and no word from Dawson on this fact. Well, critical infrastructure, but casualties would be lower than densely populated areas. Now, to pack it all away here, the findings challenge assumptions about northern Canada's seismic stability, urging reevaluation of hazards and better preparedness for unexpected disasters. Like Mark Carney, I would say that's a unexpected disaster, don't you think? I think so. Thank you very much for that. And that is our Real Deal International as we are now going in a fast-paced module. That brings us to some Real Deal Religious. Yes, it does. Well, we're not much of a online church religious show here tonight, but sometimes we have to, reach out and touch faith, as we heard before. Well, there's something now underway, as this is coming from Natural News, as they're now asking what is fueling what we see happening in Gaza, or what is fueling what is Israel doing? What is Israel doing to the people in Gaza? Well, now it's now called Christian Zionism. That is now under fire. Calls for reevaluation amid Gaza genocide. Well, the theological hypocrisy now is, as we look back now, as Christian Zionism contradicts Christ's teaching, they say, of peace by supporting Israel's military campaigns in Gaza, despite claiming, quote, pro-life values while ignoring civilian casualties, including, yes, children. Now, the misinterpreted prophecy is now Christian Zionists misread the biblical prophecies, fueling apocalyptic fear and militarism, wrongly conflating Old Testament vengeance with Jesus' message of forgiveness and decentralized spirituality. Yes, so Jesus would not like the stable coin, just to let you know. Well, the flawed biblical claims also, they're saying, as Israel's land rights argument via Abraham conveniently ignores the Palestinian Semitic lineage, exposing selective morality and condemning Hamas while justifying Palestinian suffering. Yes. And then finally here, younger generations are rejecting Christian Zionism. Hosts encourage critical self-examination while emphasizing the true faith doesn't align with genocide or oppression. And that's just a little religious memo from Natural News, and we thank them for it. Thank you very much. It's going to bring us now to health, Real Deal Health, that is.
Paging Dr. Ryan.
Yes, Real Deal Health. Thank you. Did somebody call me? Is that my pager beeping and buzzing? Let's hope so. Well, now there's now a new study, as now they're saying plastic causes disease and death from infancy to old age. That costs $1.5 trillion a year, report warns. That's sad to say now. Plastic population is what they're now calling, quote, grave, growing, and under-recognized danger in this world. Don't we know? To health, that is costing the world at least $1.5 trillion a year. Now, a new report published just today by the Lancet Medical Journal, and if you haven't subscribed to that, well, you're really missing out. That and Reader's Digest. Well, the new review of existing evidence, which was carried out by the leading health researchers and doctors over there, was published a day ahead of fresh talks in the Geneva, aiming at getting the world's first treaty on plastic pollution. Well, isn't that swell? Well, the experts called for the delegates from nearly 180 nations who are now expected to attend the gathering to finally agree on a treaty after previous failed attempts. I mean, have they been to India? Has anybody been to India? They're the biggest polluters between them and China, we're living in a plastic earth. We're living in a very polluted world. And the irony to that is the Indian doctors of this country make 26% of our medical field here in America, and they all derive from a country that is highly, highly toxic and completely unsanitary, where I can't even think about it anymore. So there's now movements to stop this, and people are trying to make some headway out of it. We don't need plastics. Try to use glass if you can. I try to all the time. And Snapple used to, and now they got bought by Coke and they use plastic. Continuing now. Well, here's another one here of some great proportion now, as even more Americans are now considered obese than ever before. That's right. Americans are now considered even more obese than ever before, raising the level higher than any other person in the nation. New obesity classification methods developed by the European Association for the Study of Obesity, wow, has significantly increased the number of Americans considered obese, raising the national obesity rate to a staggering 54.2%, meaning virtually half of every American is obese. Researchers from the Israel analyzed data from over 44,000 U.S. adults, revealing that nearly 1 in 5 individuals previously considered overweight under traditional BMI standards would now be classified as obese. There you have it. Study now, it's telling us that we need to lose weight, and people say, thank God for RFK giving us wearables that is going to be like a virtual collar ran by the government to tell us when to stop eating and to stay away from donut shops and fast food and a whole lot more. So, yeah, that is a wonderful, uplifting statistic there. Well, finally, a final story here tonight, which now brings us to someone who, well, I'll tell you in a minute, but a very sad finding as we now go to Real Deal Shows. Well, we have some sad news. As somebody who actually first got the first plastic silicone as breast implants all the way back when, well, now we have some sad reports that Lonnie Anderson is now dead at 79 years of age. Yes, like many of you, I watched WKRP Cincinnati virtually every time I had the chance. The iconic actress and model has died just Sunday of a long-term illness, which nobody talks about anymore. Everyone just dies of a long-term illness, short-term illness, but they won't tell you what it is. But just know it's long-term. Well, Anderson came to fame as the bubbly blonde Hollywood bombshell at WKRP Cincinnati. Wonderful show. The looker made her mark with a bikini pinup, as you can plainly see there, for a pictorial in Playboy magazine that led to her starring in sizzling hot receptionist Jennifer Morlow. Yeah, from that series that ran from 78 to 82. And her love life was also interesting. She married the late Hollywood legend, Mr. Burt Reynolds, from 1988 to 94. And who remembers that divorce? It was all over the tabloids. I'll tell you. She was married a total of 4 times, most recently to a man named Bob Flick. In 2008, she died in Los Angeles hospital following a, quote, prolonged illness that will have no clue given to us, no idea ever given to us again. In so long, Lonnie Anderson. Okay, finally here. This brings us to a real deal wildlife. You know, I was debating whether I was going to do this, but this is a wild story coming out of Germany. And the way I see it, it's almost of a symbol and a story of things to come in our zoos here now, as this is now being coined as the, quote, baboon massacre. That's right. German zoo feeds called primates to the lions. I don't understand. Well, while other zoos defended the unavoidable killings, protesters have rallied against the move in Nuremberg, which was intended to alleviate enclosure overcrowding. Well, after shooting dead 12 Guinea baboons last Tuesday to alleviate the overcrowding over there at that zoo, the Nuremberg Zoo faces fresh controversy, go figure, at Nuremberg, as visitors were shocked to see the primates' carcasses being fed to lions. This is so poor taste. Local media reported that the headless, limbless cadavers were served to the big cats in full view of the public. Murderers. They were presented like on a butcher's bench, a plate a la carte. It was really, really awful, one female visitor told the Nuremberg Daily. The zoo's management said that the feeding times were clearly signs posted and visitors could have avoided them. It's not our problem, they're saying. The heads had been removed so that the brains could be examined to research purposes. For research purposes, to be exact. More than 300 complaints have been lodged against the call, which now the zoo insisted was inevitable after it had spent years of trying and failing to find alternative accommodation for primates and to control their population through means of contraception. When that failed, they learned right away it was means of dinner time as the primate chow was being served for that evening. That's some real deal wildlife. Isn't that something? I tell you, you just never know what these people are going to do. Okay, we're going to get out of here. I will be back tomorrow night. We have a special, I believe, tomorrow night with The Lounge with Jim Fetzer. We're going to be doing a special about the Trump doubles. I believe that's going to be tomorrow night. I want to hope it's going to be tomorrow night. So that will be our feature for then. And so I want to thank you for allowing me back into your living rooms here as I try to get back in form of being here on the road, as my next destination will be quite glamorous. So until then, thank you for your patience. For all of us here at Real Deal Media, I'm Dean Ryan. Thank you for spending a bit of your night with all of us. In the meanwhile, always remember to stay tuned and stay awake. Good night, everybody.